Okay, back into our title, how the title Neuroplay Development Consultant changes parent perception. And we're also talking about why that perception might be a problem for you. If you want to give results that can't be ignored, sometimes you are viewed in a way that is not going to get you the results you need. So we're going to talk about that today. So this is for you. Like I said, if you work with infants in a professional manner, and I want to talk about there's a gap between a caregiving and clinical care. And there's this gap that is like felt, but um it's not addressed by anyone. It's just kind of left there. So what happens is you're hired for a specific immediate reason. So a parent will have, they need help with sleep, or they're really struggling, with doing everything on their own, or they have to go back to work. So you're hired, there's like an immediate need. And so what happens is you can get stuck in this pattern of what they hired for. So parents also have like a perception of whether who they hire is for a helper, and then they have like subconsciously two categories. So you can be in the helper category, help me with this, you're an extra set of hands so I can sleep, you're going to help make meals and support me as a doula. And so in their mind they're categorizing these things, and a lot of times in your mind you know that you bring so much to a job, so much training and understanding, and there's a gap between what you're bringing and what they're hiring for and what they think that you can do for them. And so you can get stuck in this box, and then when you notice that something else is going on with the baby, that you're limited in what you can give, and the advice you can give and how you can support them. And one big thing that I feel, and if you agree with this, drop in the chat you agree, I would love to know, is that babies are receiving, they're having a lot more stress and unnecessary procedures these days than they should be. And a lot of this is happening because of confusion. And so what happens with this, I'm going to pull it all together for you, but they hire you based on what they need at the moment, and then you're limited in the support you can give. So you see other things, but the parent doesn't see you that way, right? So then what happens if you try to step out and share what you think or what you see or what you know about their development and their feeding, or something that's out of your scope in the parent's opinion, then there can be like a wall put up. Like, wait, why are you telling me this is wrong with my baby when I hired you to support me and be an extra set of hands? And so it doesn't compute in what they're expecting from you. And what I've seen is it can cause resentment on your side and frustration, and even a feeling like a glass ceiling that you can't get past. And have you experienced any of these things in your work? I would love to hear about it. Drop in the chat. What if you've experienced any of this frustration when you try to speak to a parent about something else that's going on that you feel you can help? Maybe you don't have the right language, or maybe you tried and it was shut down. So let me start with a simple question. Kind of goes with the last part. Do you feel that you're taken seriously enough and recognized as an integral part, recognized as, right? As an integral part of this baby achieving their success, right? Are you perceived as an essential part or a luxury just to help with baby things? Okay. This is where I see a disconnect for a lot of providers, is that they feel that they are an integral part and very important and bringing a lot of times high level skills, and the parents don't feel like it's a luxury or an extra thing. And so answer this for me in the chat, that in order to be taken more seriously, such as high value, that you need to do these things in order to be taken seriously. So that in order people will figure out the cost to hire you, you feel like they're like, I have to have this person. Do you feel like you've had to work really long hours? So I have someone I've worked with, and she was not a young new, she's a newborn care specialist, and she was working 16-hour days. She was barely sleeping, and that's how she gets her she gets really good referrals, right? Everyone's kind of talks about her, but she gives so much of herself in order to achieve this feeling, people thinking of her as such high value, you know. The other thing is, do you feel like you need to go back and get a degree in order to be taken more seriously? I mean, that's a lot of money and time. Trust me, I can share about that, and or speak more assertively. Do you feel like you have to do any of these things to be taken more seriously? If you can answer me, that would be great. Let me know, because I want to customize this for you. And you're here live, I get to answer and direct for what you need. Okay. So some of those things, some of these three things can be true. But for example, speaking more assertively can actually got one of my students, got her fired from a job because she's like really standing behind herself. She's like, I know this. I am super experienced in this area, and you, new mom, need to listen to me. And so the mom actually fired her. And I wound up helping out in this situation. I typically don't, but I wound up trying to figure out what the disconnect was. And the mom said she didn't listen to me. She said what she knew and what her experience was, and she talked all, like about that more assertively. So that does not work either. You know, speaking from a place of, you know, experience, that's different. But none of those things are going to directly increase the value, the appreciation, and the respect that you get, because they don't relate to what your audience needs. You're not solving the perception of what they hired you for. So if they hired you to be an extra set of hands, they're not looking for any more advice. They're not looking for all of these things. But if they hire you in a category of trusting and realizing what you're bringing, you can bring high level development advice. You know what's going on with their baby's neurological system. You know when something's not connecting right, and you can help them direct that. So then they have an easier time. They have a quicker time with figuring it out. The baby is not crying for so long. She's not dealing with feeding issues for 6 months. They're not 15 months and still sleeping in the bed, waking up all night. So these things, developmentally, if you can speak this way, that's where the perception change can come from. Okay. Before we move on, I want to know if I could give you the tools to clearly show the parents where their baby is missing out and how you can solve this and the title to go with it. Would you feel more valued? Would parents value you more? Yes or no? All right.
Yes, yes.
Thank you. Thank you for answering. Um, so I want to tell you a little story of Christina. She's a very, very passionate. She's a nanny with a bachelor's degree in child development. And although she had all of these things behind her, she was charging very, very low amount of money. And she was the definition of this, like having a calling and this heart to serve, but she couldn't barely pay her own bills and keep her life going because she, when you're a nanny, you're working a lot of hours, and she needed to know how to monetize herself better. Well, what I learned by working with Christina is that it wasn't about her training so much. She did what she was very very also driven to get higher level skills. And so she wanted to know everything. But it came from being able to own it and feel inside that she had this amazingness to bring, and then how to communicate it to the families so their perception of her was a higher level than what coming in, I'm your nanny, I'm going to make sure your child stays alive while you go back to work. So that can sometimes be the perception of the parent. Okay. And so what happened was, so I've come back to this because this is what we're moving into shortly, is talking about these tools to clearly show the parents where your baby's missing something, what they're doing amazingly, because you can tell. So it's not just like, let's go along with normal until, oh, wait, now there's a big, huge problem, right? So this is you leading with tools. I see this amazing with your baby. I see this is missing. I can help solve this. And then you have the title that shows it. That's what we're talking about today. So here's a couple things. If you feel like you, like I said, you should maybe be further ahead in life by now. And you bring so much to the table, but you feel overlooked still and minimized in your role. You know, I have a little bit about myself. And so I didn't share too much about me. If you're new to me, I apologize. Let me know that you're new to me. I I'm a pediatric physical therapist, and so I'm also a teacher, and I raised two children and raising, I should say. But as a clinical role, even though I did all this training and it's a great job because you're helping people, I never thought that I could change anything in the system the way it's set up to make a difference. So it's like you go through all this stuff, right? And you're in a system. And so when you notice something that could be better, for me, I didn't really think I could make a change. I had it in my head that it was a fact that I was just part of the after story of all of his children. They had already had, let's say, birth trauma or a developmental delay or just whatever their limitation was. Their sensory system wasn't regulated. They had a lot of stress or whatever they came to me with. I couldn't control that. I was just one person doing my best at my job. It wasn't different. And I don't know if you relate. I'm sharing this because a lot of providers feel this in your role. And so I can't do things outside of my determined scope of what someone told me was my scope. Okay. But what happened is I started seeing some private clients, and being in the field for so long, I was getting frustrated. I always wanted to have a magic wand. I said that probably hundreds of times because I love children. And that's why I specialized in pediatrics. But they come to me already so challenged, and then I had to figure out, how can I help as much as possible? How can I fix this habit or this pattern? And I always wanted it to be better and faster, and to help them have like the most amazing life they could, play with their friends, run in a basketball game if they wanted to, do whatever they wanted to do. And I realized that I'm very limited after the fact in a clinical role. Like I said, not that it's bad role, right? Children need help. I just realized I could help sooner. My help was coming too late. And so parents in the beginning, once I got this experience and put it together with my, I had this neurodevelopmental treatment certification that took about a year or so to get. I was like, wait a minute. I don't want to just wait until these problems are like this. So I worked with this one mom, and she went to the son's preschool, and finally just randomly meets me, and she's talking about her daughter who was 9 months old. And she's like, you can help with this? And I was like, yeah, what's going on? And she's like, I'm Googling stuff, activities, right? This was before Instagram was like a huge IG thing. You can pull up 80 million little development, but that's what she's doing. She's like, I'm Googling all these activities, do this, do that. She's like, she hates all of them. She won't do any of them, and she's just crying and screaming. And then I'm crying. And that's not, it ruins their whole first, like, not ruined all of it, but their first 9 months together was so stressed. And that, in my opinion, that's not what it's supposed to be. So I realized what helped me with this realization here is that I could have changed their entire 9 months together with her new baby, right? For her, it was her sensory system. She hated movement. And I found this out later. But if that could have been observed in the beginning when she was like 2 months or 3 months, or if she was just getting the movement anyway from 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, she would not have been 9 months and had a sensory system that was dysregulated and wasn't connecting correctly. It wouldn't have been a thing. It would have adapted from the 2 month time, the 3 month time. So it wouldn't have had to be solved later. Um, so this one kind of clicked for me. Everything changed for me. And I was like, I don't want to wait until all of these babies have had all of this stress and the moms are crying. I want to work in the first year and I want to teach others to work in the first year so that we're creating the baby's movement patterns as they're being developed instead of waiting until they're messed up, like something messes up, right? They need support before a problem escalates. Now, you might be thinking, some people think, well, not every baby has a neurological problem. Correct. Although the ones that, let's say, they're not going to have anything wrong, they're doing fine. Their head turns both ways. They love to be held and squeezed. Maybe they can roll both ways, and all of that is clicking. Still, as a neuroplay development consultant, you will be able to elevate that even further. And so that's what happens when I see a baby and I was sitting at the library with a friend of mine and I just hold babies and I move them and I do stuff. And while her and I were just chit-chatting, and she called me later. She goes, "What did you do to her in the library?" And I was like, "Oh my gosh, what did I do?" I was like, did I mess something up? She goes, she had this wonky crawl and I couldn't figure it out. And she didn't even tell me. She's like, after she woke up from her nap, it was gone. She was crawling perfectly and I didn't even think to tell you about it. And I was like, oh, thank God. Thank God. So these kinds of things, like she would have gone on to probably be smart. She probably would have been fine. But there was a connection that was missing because she couldn't get the balance of her body. Now, one thing I haven't said yet is that the brain is a window into what's happening in the, sorry, the body and the movements is a window into the brain development. I said that backwards, into what's happening. And so it's like a communication, it's a language, and that it's telling us the brain is developing beautifully, everything's connecting and syncing. You have the corpus callosum, you have the right and left brain. And so when a baby can roll and flip and come up to sit, and there's a 4 month, 5 month, 6 month positions that are really important, you're like, okay, the brain is coming online. It's doing great. Everything's clicking. I'm going to facilitate even more. So you'd be able to see, I'm going to move this baby 1 to 2 steps ahead of where they are. And it's not so they can walk earlier or so it's not a milestone check off. It's you're literally creating their brain as it's developing. You're guiding it and there will be more connections and more communication. And there's a pretty famous doctor that him and I are in conversation about partnering. And it's named Dr. Malalo, and he's written a lot of books, but about the disconnected brain, imbalanced brain. And so he says that a lot of neuromotor disorders, autism, ADD, ADHD, and the list goes on, is a result of an imbalanced brain. So one side of the brain is stronger than the other. And so these imbalances can be, this is where the cool part is. There's a lot of cool parts, right? If you agree with me there. The cool part is that movement, very, very, very often, like 98%, maybe 99, shows us when there's an imbalance. It can also be their interaction with you or their ability to sometimes sit still, sometimes move, sometimes be held. I'll tell you a story in a little bit about a baby who wouldn't go in a carrier. So there's these things that feeding is a very, you need very organized system to do correct latching and feeding, and then switch to a bottle, and then go to sleep. Everybody wants the baby to sleep like right away in a certain, it's like you need a very organized and regulated neurological system for all of this to happen. Okay. So what kind of shifting my thinking and creating a neuroplay consultant program, neuroplay method has achieved? Here's just a couple things. And I wanted to share with you about, there was a 6-month old who her mom shows up to one of our development sessions, and she pulls out of the car like 7 carriers. She walks over to me and just like throws them on the ground. She says, she won't go in any of these. Well, she has 3 other children, all little girls, all over the place. And so the baby would not go in a carrier. And so the same baby, we worked on that, would not, and I didn't even know this, but after we worked together for a little bit, she cuddled with her dad for the very first time. And I didn't even know that that was a problem, but it makes sense after the fact, is that she wouldn't settle on him. He couldn't hold her, she was uncomfortable. It was pushing him away. And as a dad, he felt like terrible. He felt like I can't soothe my daughter. So anyway, that was something that we figured out and organized. I actually started seeing her because we met in a bathroom and her baby was having a lot of trouble feeding. She's under the cover and arching and screaming. So that's actually how I met her. But when you put everything together, babies are not separate, right? There's no feeding problem. Over here is a neurological problem. Over here is a um, milestone challenge. Over here is a sleeping challenge. It's not separate. It's a baby's neurological developmental system is all coming online all together and very, very, very fast. Okay. One other thing I want to share from here is the 9-month-old I mentioned earlier, who her sensory system was not little, not a little, was she hated movement. She went on to excel in gymnastics with her typically functioning peers, not in special ed or anything like that. So she became a little gymnast. Talk about movement, right? It just needed to be connected and balanced. Okay. Anybody have any thoughts or questions so far? Please drop it in the chat. If you are on social, drop a me in the comments and I'll get it later that you'd love the Zoom link, and I'll get it for you, okay? Okay, here's a script. I want to move on into something that you can test out. Now, I preface this with, I want you to test this with a past client that you already worked with or a current client, but I want you to preface it as something like, if I spoke to you this way, if I could offer you this, right? Would this have made me be, a really, really clear hire? Would you have paid more for that? Would you have You can say, would you refer me to your friends more for that? Whatever it is that you would feel more success with. Okay. I want you to see how it lands with parents. Okay. And how it instantly, I want you to let me know, it instantly elevates trust or interest in what can you do? How does that change my life? What does that do for me, right? So this is, I say interview script because that's where I'd want you to use this. Okay. So I want you to test this out. I support families as a neuroplay development consultant, which means I help you understand what's happening in your baby's brain and body so that we can solve challenges early and promote the best possible development, which makes sure your baby's set up for excellence from the beginning. Okay, so I want you to customize that for your own personality, your own comfort, and sorry, social sending me a weird thing. I want you to customize that in your words and test it out how the parent reacts. Is it with interest? Is it with just I want you to see how they react. All right, number 2 and number 3, you can also add in there, especially with a follow-up question. So if they ask a follow-up question, you don't want to give like a whole presentation. You want to say, like if they say, "Oh wow, how do you do that?" You say, "I look at things like primitive reflex patterns, early movements, because the early movements show what's happening in the brain, muscle tone, and the regulation, so we can understand why something's happening, not just manage symptoms." Now, remember, I did tell you this is not clinical. Okay, this is completely within the scope that you have. I know it sounds like, I don't know, maybe this sounds like this to you. Let me know. Like, can I really provide all of that? Yes, you can. So the third one you can use is this allows us to support your baby's development proactively, prevent compensation patterns. Okay. I don't know that you should say integrate any challenges early. I don't know if parents will get that. Sometimes you work for doctors and doctors would really, really appreciate this language. They'd be like, wow, where were you trained? So this is what I want you to test it out. Those of you who came live, you get a document with this. So then you can customize these words for yourself and you can go use them and test how people react, their perceptions of what you just said. All right, before I give you some of the neuroplay framework, I want to see if you have any questions about using that script or anything that I have shared so far. If you are live, you get to ask questions. Okay, awesome. Anyone here have any questions? Drop it in the chat. Is this helpful so far? All right, if you are on social, drop any questions that you have. Any questions about the script or, all right. So I'm going to give you some background on, to make sure you can see me, my board. We're going to talk about the neuroplay method, the framework, the exact framework, all right, that will help you not have to make it up on your own and then wondering if you're right. Anybody ever looked up development activities on Instagram or TikTok and they come through and they're like, "Oh yeah, that'll be fun," and it doesn't work? Or maybe you wonder if that's the right thing to be doing with that baby. There's a lot of them that I see are wrong. That I sometimes I say something, sometimes I don't, but they're literally wrong. For example, you don't facilitate rolling of a baby with their hip flexors. And these are therapists sometimes teaching these things, but you don't stick your fingers in their hip flexors right here to pull them and make them move. Like that's totally wrong. Whenever you, this might be helpful, wherever you touch, you're giving a cue and their system recognizes it. So if like, for example, you're trying to work on sitting and you have them leaning on you, they're actually going to push backwards. So I don't know if you've ever noticed that, but just an example. So if you're ever looking for development videos, it's kind of like just like grasping at something. And then it's like, oh, I'll try this because I really want to do, I mean, it comes from a good intention, right? Like I want to do the best when I'm with a baby. I want to do like this great activity to help with crawling. Okay, and then here's another one they show where you push on the bottom of the feet like this, and then the baby jumps forward like this, right? So that's a reflex. So they're not learning crawling, which is reciprocal movement. Your core has to be activated. They're not they're not learning crawling. You're activating the plantar reflex. So they push and they jump like a little frog, right? So I don't recommend doing it that way either. So those are just a couple examples. All right, so let's go here. I want to teach you about the framework. And then I'm here for you if you're on Zoom with some questions. I also, yeah, let's do this first. So the first part of the framework is having a structure and a sequence of movement. So the sequence of movements, to make sure that y'all can see me here. The sequence and the structure, what it does is gives each baby exactly what they need during, so whatever awake time, during every awake time, you're going to have a sequence of movement. So all of their systems can get organized. Now, the cool thing is you don't have to know the science behind anything to do this. The parents don't have to know the deep science. They don't have to have taken my neurological course or an anatomy. It's like just do these. So it organizes the developing sensory system. It helps to regulate. You get the eye contact for vision. Um, the joints get input, which communicates with the brain. The rolling gets done. Everything is done in an organized, repeatable way, right? So the other thing that does is shows you as elevates what you're going to bring, right? The parents like, oh wow, you're teaching me this sequence that gives my baby everything neurologically that they need, and you engage with them, so they have to get the nurturing part as well. That already elevates you right there. You're like, I'd love to teach you this sequence of movements that will help your baby excel and will give excellence in whatever they try to do. It'll help their fine motor skills. It'll help their sleep. It's going to help their all their milestones because that's a word that parents really understand. Going to give you personally confidence that you're bringing this and you're not questioning yourself. So remember how we talked about the perceived role at the beginning? If you're questioning yourself, it for sure comes through, when you're talking, right? So if I wasn't that confident in what I was saying right now, you'd be able to tell. Like if I was like, oh, I'm not really sure if this works with babies, you would know. You wouldn't believe me. Okay. But I am very, very certain in this. This is why I teach it. And so that can be carried over to you. You'll stand in confidence of this sequence will give your baby excellence in how they move and how they think, and it's connecting with their brain. And then the second part, so what the sequence also helps you do is to, this is the second, more, a little bit more advanced part. So you just do the sequences every awake time, you show the parent, it elevates your expertise. The second part is where you can assess what's happening during the sequences and you can start to feel when something isn't right, when something isn't moving right, when it's not the same as the other side, because you're doing the sequence repeatedly, right? You're going to do it, every awake time as possible. And then you're going to start to assess. And if you work with me to become a consultant, you get a checklist. You get all this information. So you're doing the sequence, and then it's like, did this arm do this? The eyes do this? Did their neck do this? Did this hip feel like this? Did this foot do this? So it's like, oh, I did notice that. Okay, so you start to file it, right? Remember I told you that the body is a communication of what's connecting or not in the brain. Okay, so you're getting information about something in the brain that's not connecting. Imagine, right now, imagine you can give that to a baby and to a family, that at that moment, right there, you notice something and you realize the body's communicating that this is not good in the brain, it's not connecting. You can then connect it right there. So, first of all, imagine what that gift you're giving to people and to babies, right? Secondly, imagine what that does for your achievement, for your business, for your fulfillment, right? And so, anyway, that's the two things. So, the third is adjust and connect. So, you're going to adapt the sequence to give the brain and the body what it needs. So you did the sequence, you notice something, you give it what it needs right there. Imagine how that can connect. Oh, connect. If that baby doesn't have a neurological limitation, right? If it's just what I mean is like a birth event, something very, very severe. If they don't have that, it's going to connect. It's going to move right there, right there. um, One of my students, she was offering this during her education. She was working with a family as a nanny and an NCS, and she was doing this for free for her finishing her program, right? Anyway, she worked with that child and she did all these things, and then she stopped working with them because she moved on. They called her back like a month later, and they were like, can you please, please, please come back and do whatever it is that you were doing? We will do whatever you say. I was so happy for her because the boost that that gave her was like, oh my gosh, I know something amazing. And apparently, when she stopped working with the baby, like all kinds of things, like her head started tilting, she couldn't roll both ways, like all of this stuff kind of come. And they were like, please come back. We'll do anything you say. So that was really, really cool for her. So the fourth part is almost the most important, because all of us, it doesn't matter how amazing we are if we can't communicate it in a confident way. If you're amazing on the inside and nobody knows about it, then you actually are not, because it doesn't exist for people who see you. It doesn't exist, right? And then you can be resentment for, why doesn't anyone see all the stuff I can bring to them? Why don't they value me? Right? Um, so the communication of all of the stuff that I just showed you that's in the framework is almost the most important, because that way you stand in your confidence and your perceived role shifts. So you shift about what I can bring, and then your perceived role of you shifts so that people see you in that way. Does that make sense? Okay. So today I'm offering you an easy way to step onto this path and win for everyone. Oh, I forgot the refer. My bad. So the communication is how you stand in your power, you shift how you see yourself and what you can bring. Okay. And then 5 is refer, because not always are things, sometimes they're going to need a specialist like me or a doctor of some sort, a neurologist, or different things, right? Um, so this is the 5 steps. And so I'm not saying you're not clinical, right? You're not clinical, but you're bringing a lot to the table and you're filling the gap that we talked about, which is in between caregiving, just being a helper, another set of hands. And then there's this clinical over here, helper and clinical. There's this big space, right? That no one is addressing and no one feels it until it's time for the big problem. Okay, so the refer part also sets you up to refer and shorten this, take the stress out of it for parents. You're going to see things early, and you're going to know, oh wait, this is not working. This is not going to change with just the sequences. This needs another eye, and this is the eye that it needs. So imagine like that. That's the shortened path you're going to give for everyone. And parents lead on you. They'll lead on you. You're going to go from being an extra to necessary and integral. Okay, I would love, love, love to know, has this been valuable for you? Has this been valuable? See, go in the chat, let me know. You see who's here. Um, has this been valuable for you? You can answer out loud or you can type it in the chat. Thank you, Padma. Great. So I want to say what this was just an hour. This is me telling you how the title of neurodevelopment consultant can change the perception of parents and why does their perception even need to be adjusted sometimes, or it's how they see you. Does it match up with how you see yourself? Okay. So if it would be helpful for you to spend time with me, 20, 30 minutes, and ask a question about how this can change your career, right? What would this do for you? Where are you stuck? What are you feeling? And what is that causing for you that you would like to change, that you would like to grow? If it would be helpful for you to speak with me, I have a calendar link. I'm going to drop it in the chat here. Okay. And book a call. There's not that many spots because I'm also a mom and a wife, and I have my work hours, but I want to be there for you to help solve this. If there's a problem that you have, or a ceiling that you reached, and you want this to be your career, but you want to feel more successful about it, book your spot now and jump on my calendar if that would be helpful for you. So I'm opening up a little time this evening, and then tomorrow I have to go in and adjust the ones for tomorrow. So if it filled up, send me a message, just send me an email, and I'll see if I can add some spots on Saturday for you. After this, everyone will receive the recording, and so they will also have the same opportunity for the link. So if you want to book a call, do it now before they fill up, if that would help you. Okay. Now, your show up live bonus, I will send to you. I know who is here. Thank you on TikTok and social. Thanks for watching. If you would like any more information, you want to join this movement with me, you want to be in the community, send me an email at elizabeth@abilifit.org. Bye. All right. So your show up live bonus, I will send to you um the script that I created today. I will send it to you and some ways that you can customize it. You're going to customize it for yourself. And I want you to use that and make some change for yourself. Go test it out. How would that look in real time? How would that look for people you've worked with? Would they appreciate that? Would they be like, oh, yeah, wow. So I am here for you. And what questions do you have for me? Questions, thoughts? Feel free to unmute yourself.
Yeah, thank you so much for it was so informative. Um, thank you for I never know we can do this. I'm also NCA